The twin suns of Xylaris Prime burned above the massive arena, their golden light reflecting off the silver spires that surrounded it. The place was alive with sound, thousands of alien voices chanting a single name over and over again. Vylara, Vylara, Vylara. At the center of the arena, a tall figure stood motionless, her armor glinting like molten steel. General Vylara of the Corran Dominion, the undefeated champion of the galactic tournament. Her crimson eyes scanned the crowd as she raised her spear high above her head, the metal blade humming with energy. She had fought hundreds of battles. She had never once fallen. Around her, the announcers shouted in dozens of alien tongues, "Behold the warrior who has never tasted defeat, the conqueror of the 9 sectors, the terror of the Outer Rim, General Vylara." The crowd roared. Dust swirled around her boots as she turned slowly, absorbing their cheers. She was proud, powerful, and fearless. Every challenger who had faced her lay broken behind her. Beasts, machines, and warriors from 100 worlds. She had crushed them all. She looked up at the floating judge drones above the arena. "Who is my next opponent?" she asked, her voice calm and confident. A deep mechanical tone echoed through the air. "The final challenger of today's round, representative of Earth." For a moment, the crowd went silent. Then laughter rippled across the stands. Earth? The small young planet on the outer edge of the Council's map? No one had ever heard of a human warrior joining such a competition. Most species considered humans too weak, too emotional, too fragile to stand against the galaxy's strongest. Vylara tilted her head slightly. "Earth?" she repeated, her voice filled with mild amusement. "I have never heard of them." The announcer continued, "Introducing Captain Elias Ward of the United Terran Forces." A single figure stepped out from the opposite gate. He was not covered in metal plating or glowing armor. His clothing was light and simple, standard combat gear, worn and scratched from past battles. His brown hair was short, his eyes steady, and his face carried no trace of fear. He looked ordinary, almost plain, next to the towering alien champion before him. But there was something different about the way he walked. Calm, grounded, unshaken, as he entered the arena. The crowd's laughter grew louder. Some aliens mocked him openly. Others shouted advice on how to surrender quickly. Vylara smirked, her sharp teeth flashing. "They send me a man? From a forgotten world?" Her voice echoed across the arena. "No man can defeat me." Elias stopped a few meters away and looked up at her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then a small, confident smile crossed his face. "Try me." The audience fell silent again. Something about his tone, quiet yet steady, cut through the noise. Even Vylara blinked once, surprised. She had expected arrogance or fear, not this strange, calm confidence. The referee drone hovered between them, projecting a glowing field of blue light. "Combatants ready. Match begins in 5 seconds. Vylara twirled her spear once and lowered into a fighting stance, her armor plates shifting with a low hum. Elias stretched his arms, rolling his shoulders lightly, his eyes locked on her every movement. "Begin!" Vylara moved first. Like lightning, she charged forward, spear flashing in the sunlight. Her movements were faster than any human's eyes could follow, but Elias didn't panic. He dropped low, sliding to the side as the spear cut through the air inches from his head. The energy from the blade sliced a deep line into the sand behind him. The crowd gasped. Elias came up quickly, countering with a sharp jab from his baton. It hit her shoulder armor and bounced off harmlessly. The Corran general barely felt it, but she noticed his precision. His aim was perfect. If she hadn't been armored, that strike might have hit a vital point. Vylara grinned, excitement flashing in her eyes. Good reflexes, human, but not good enough. She struck again, once, twice, 3 times, each blow powerful enough to crush stone. Elias dodged and weaved, never standing still. He didn't try to overpower her. He simply moved, analyzed, and adapted. His every motion was calculated. The alien champion felt something unusual. Usually by now her opponents were trembling or bleeding. But this human, he was studying her, learning her pattern. With each passing second he adjusted his rhythm. She swung wide and he ducked beneath the spear, driving his shoulder into her chest. The impact made her stumble half a step back. The crowd shouted in shock. Someone had pushed the champion off balance. Elias didn't press the attack. He simply stood his ground, breathing hard, eyes focused. Vylara straightened, her smile fading into curiosity. "You fight with restraint," she said. "Why?" Elias replied quietly, "Because I'm not here to show off. I'm here to learn." That answer puzzled her more than anything else. Every other fighter came to prove their strength. This one came to understand. The battle continued. Valara unleashed a storm of strikes, fast, heavy, deadly. Elias moved like a shadow, each dodge taking him an inch away from disaster. Sweat ran down his face and his arms trembled, but his mind stayed sharp. He began to notice small flaws, tiny pauses between her swings, brief delays when she adjusted her stance. At the 10th minute, the referee announced, "Round time limit reached." Pause combat. The crowd exploded in noise. No one had ever lasted 10 minutes against Valara, not even cyborg champions. And this human, this fragile being from a young world, was still standing. Valara looked at him with new respect. "You are not what I expected, human." Elias smiled slightly. "Humans rarely are." She laughed, a deep, proud sound. "Then perhaps I should treat you like a real opponent." She activated the second mode of her armor. The metal plates shifted, glowing red with heat. Energy lines pulsed across her arms and legs. The arena's floor shook as her power level doubled. Elias took a deep breath, tightening his grip on his baton. "Guess I'll have to keep up." The second round began like a thunderstorm. Valara's attacks became faster, stronger. Her spear burned through the air like fire. Elias barely had time to react. One strike grazed his arm, leaving a smoking line on his armor. Pain shot through his body, but he refused to back down. Every time he was hit, he recovered faster. Every time he fell, he got back up. The crowd, once mocking, began to watch in silence. There was something powerful in the way this human moved, not just skill, but will. He simply wouldn't give up. After several fierce exchanges, both fighters paused, breathing heavily. The air crackled between them. Dust hung in golden light. Valara spoke first, her voice low but not mocking anymore. "You fight without fear. Why?" Elias looked her straight in the eyes. "Because fear doesn't help me win. It only reminds me what's worth fighting for." For the first time, the great Koran general found herself without words. She had fought countless warriors who sought glory, fame, or vengeance, but never one who fought for something bigger than victory. The referee drone lowered again. Round 2 complete. Both combatants remained standing. The crowd erupted into cheers. This time not for Valara alone, but for both fighters. Even aliens who had mocked humans now found themselves shouting the Terran's name. Valara looked around, then turned back to Elias. Her eyes burned with new determination. "You are not done yet, human. Tomorrow we finish this." Elias nodded, smiling faintly despite his bruises. "I'll be here." As he walked back toward his gate, he could still hear her voice echoing behind him. "No man can defeat me." She called again, but this time it sounded less like arrogance and more like a challenge. Elias didn't turn around. He just raised one hand in quiet acknowledgement and said under his breath, "Then let's see." The gates closed behind him, and the crowd's cheers faded into the distance. The tournament had just begun, but already whispers were spreading across Xylaris Prime. A human had faced the unbeaten champion and survived. And for the first time in years, the galaxy's strongest warrior had found an opponent worthy of respect. The next day, the twin suns of Xylaris Prime rose again over the shining arena. The air shimmered with heat, and the stands filled with thousands of spectators from all corners of the galaxy. Word had spread fast about the human who stood against the unbeaten champion and survived. Merchants shouted, selling flags, food, and glowing souvenirs. Hollow screens replayed clips of the previous match, showing Elias Ward dodging Valara's deadly spear. Even those who had laughed at humans before now spoke of him with respect or curiosity. In the waiting chamber below the arena, Elias sat alone, cleaning his equipment. His uniform was torn in several places, his left arm bandaged. The hum of distant crowds echoed through the metal walls. He took a slow breath, steadying his mind. He wasn't here for fame or victory. He was here because humanity had been ignored for too long, seen as weak, emotional, and unimportant by the great empires of the galaxy. He wanted to change that. "Captain Ward," came a soft voice. Elias looked up. Standing at the doorway was Lyra, a small alien medic from the council's team. Her translucent skin glowed faintly blue and her large eyes blinked with concern. "You shouldn't fight again so soon," she said gently. "Your body needs more time to recover." Elias smiled. "If I wait for the perfect time, I'll never be ready." "Besides," he added, adjusting his gloves, "the champion is waiting." Lyra tilted her head. "You humans are strange. You bleed and still smile." Elias chuckled softly. "We've had a lot of practice." Above, in her private chamber, General Vylara was silent. She stood before a large mirror, fastening her crimson armor. Around her, her lieutenants watched quietly, none daring to speak. She had not slept well. The image of the human, his calm eyes, his quiet voice, his persistence had stayed in her mind. No one had ever lasted against her for so long. No one had ever made her question herself. "Are you troubled, General?" asked one of her lieutenants. Vylara's crimson eyes narrowed. "No, I am curious." She turned away, picking up her spear. The weapon hummed to life, its blue edge glowing brighter than before. "Yesterday I faced a man. Today I will face what makes him human." The arena gates opened once again. The crowd roared as Vylara stepped forward, her armor gleaming under the suns. She raised her spear high, and the cheers thundered like a storm. She had always been the symbol of strength, unshaken, unbeatable. Then, on the opposite side, the second gate opened and Elias walked out. This time, there was no laughter. The crowd watched in silence and respect. The human's face was calm, but his eyes carried fire. He moved with quiet confidence, his every step echoing against the stone floor. When he reached the center, Vylara lowered her weapon. "You return knowing you cannot win," she said. "Why?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because I'm not fighting to win. I'm fighting to see how far I can go." Her expression softened slightly. "Strange creature," she murmured. "Let us see how far that is." The referee drone hovered above them once more.
Second round.
Combatants ready. The light between them flared. "Begin." Vylara moved first, faster than before. Her spear became a blur of blue light. Elias barely dodged the first strike, the air whistling past his ear. She spun, bringing the weapon down in a wide arc. He rolled aside, sand exploding around him. She pressed forward relentlessly, every blow heavy with precision. Elias blocked one strike with his baton, sparks flying, but the impact sent him sliding backward. His arms ached, but he stayed focused. The crowd gasped as Vylara leapt high, landing behind him in a single motion. Her speed was beyond belief. She thrust forward, but Elias dropped low again, twisting her wrist and forcing her to take a step back. For a brief second, both paused, breathing hard. Vylara's grin returned. "You are faster than before." Elias straightened. "You're making me practice," she laughed, a real, genuine laugh. The crowd could feel it. This was no longer just a fight. It was something deeper, a test of wills between two beings from different worlds. As the battle continued, Vylara noticed something strange. Every time she struck him, he learned. Every time she changed her rhythm, he adjusted. It was as if he was copying her techniques, turning her strength into his lesson. She lunged again, but this time he sidestepped, using her momentum to spin her around. She caught herself instantly, but the move surprised her. "How?" she demanded. "How do you adapt so quickly?" Elias replied between breaths. "Humans, we survive by learning fast. The universe doesn't give us time to do it slowly." Her eyes widened slightly. For the first time, she understood that his greatest weapon was not strength or technology. It was adaptability. The duel stretched on. The suns climbed higher. Sweat dripped down Elias's face, his arms shaking from the effort. Vylara's armor smoked lightly, her breathing heavier. Neither refused to stop. In the stands, the audience began chanting both their names. "Vylara! Elias Vylara! Elias!" Lyra watched from the medical box, her heart racing. "He's not supposed to last this long," she whispered. The fight became a storm of motion. Vylara's spear met Elias's baton again and again, sparks and light flashing like fireworks. Sand flew beneath their feet. The sound of metal echoed across the arena. Then with one sudden strike, Vylara managed to disarm him. His baton flew across the floor. The crowd gasped. She pointed her glowing spear at his chest. "It's over." Elias looked at her calmly. "Not yet." In a swift move, he grabbed a handful of sand and threw it upward. The light scattered off the dust, blinding her sensors for a moment. He dashed forward, dodging past her spear and sliding behind her. Using the side of his forearm, he tapped the energy switch on her armor. The red glow faded. Vylara froze, shocked. "You—" Elias stepped back, breathing heavily. Sometimes strength isn't about hitting harder. It's about thinking faster. The crowd erupted into cheers and laughter, amazed at his clever trick. Even the council judges watching from above leaned forward with interest. Vylara deactivated her weapon and turned to him slowly. Her face was unreadable, but her tone was calm. You could have ended me when my systems went offline. Why didn't you? Elias replied simply, because this isn't about defeating you. It's about proving that even a small world can stand beside a great one. For a long time she stared at him. Then, to everyone's shock, she lowered her weapon and bowed slightly. You have honor, human. I respect that, Elias nodded. And you have strength. I respect that too. The referee drone floated between them. Second round complete. Combatants remained standing. The crowd rose to its feet, cheering wildly. It was the first time in the history of the tournament that Velara had chosen to end a match by respect, instead of victory. As they left the arena, cameras followed their every step. News feeds across the galaxy lit up with headlines, "Human survives 2 matches against the champion." "Earth soldier shows new kind of strength." Later that evening, Velara stood on the balcony of her quarters watching the twin suns set behind the towers of Xylaris. The city lights shimmered below like stars. Behind her, the door opened softly. Elias entered, his arm still wrapped in bandages. "You walk without fear, human," she said without turning. "You faced me twice and still live. Tell me, what drives you?" Elias stood beside her, gazing at the horizon. "My people. We face storms, wars, hunger, but we always rise again. We fight not because we love battle, but because we love surviving it." Velara looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is more strength in your kind than I thought." He smiled faintly. "You'll see more tomorrow," she raised a brow. "Tomorrow?" "The semifinals," he said. "You and me again, unless you're afraid." For the first time in years, Velara laughed out loud. A deep, honest sound. "Afraid?" "No, human. Excited." As the suns vanished below the horizon, 2 warriors, 1 alien, 1 human, stood side by side, not as enemies, but as rivals who had begun to understand one another. The galaxy, watching from afar, felt something shift. It was not just a tournament anymore. It was the beginning of a legend, the moment when a single human began to change how the stars saw mankind. The night after the second match was calm on Xylaris Prime. The twin moons floated above the shining city like pale guardians. The massive arena was empty now, quiet except for the soft hum of the energy barriers that surrounded it. Inside the medical wing, Captain Elias Ward sat on a hospital bed. His arms were covered with bandages, his shoulder bruised, and there was a deep cut on his leg. He had refused the stronger alien healing drugs. They worked fast but left people feeling weak afterward. Elias preferred the slow, human way. Lyra, the alien medic, stood beside him, scanning his vitals with a handheld device. "You should be resting," she said, frowning. Elias gave a tired smile. "I am resting." "Sitting still counts, right?" She sighed softly. "You humans are strange. Most fighters would retire after facing Velara twice. You seem happy." Elias looked out the window at the stars. "I'm not happy because I won. I didn't. I'm happy because I made her respect me. That means I showed her what humans are made of." Lyra tilted her head, curious. "And what are humans made of?" Elias smiled faintly. "Mistakes, hope, and the will to keep getting back up." Far above, in her own quarters, General Velara stood before a large screen showing replays of the previous battles. Each time she saw Elias dodge, counter, or endure her attacks, she felt something stir inside her. It wasn't anger or frustration, it was curiosity. She had fought warriors from over 50 worlds, each with their own strengths. The Bruntek had strength. The Vern had speed. The Mekar had logic and precision. But humans were different. They were unpredictable. They turned weakness into strength. "General," her lieutenant said, entering quietly, "tomorrow's semifinals are confirmed. You face the human again." Velara turned off the screen. "Good," she said simply. "This time I will test his spirit, not just his skill." Her lieutenant hesitated. "You think he can defeat you?" Velara's eyes glowed faintly red. "No man has ever defeated me, but that does not mean no human ever will." The next day the arena filled faster than ever. News feeds across the galaxy showed live coverage. Human challenger faces champion again. The spirit of Earth shines in the arena. Billions were watching. Children across worlds wore small Earth flags on their arms, cheering for the underdog from the little blue planet. Even alien commentators began to speak of humans with newfound respect. When the gates opened, Elias walked into the arena to thunderous applause. The crowd that had once mocked him now chanted his name. "Elias, Elias. He smiled quietly, but his heart beat faster. He wasn't fighting just for himself now, he was fighting for Earth. For every human who ever felt small in the eyes of the stars. On the opposite side, Vylara stepped out in full armor, her spear glowing brighter than ever. She looked at him with calm focus, not arrogance. "Captain Ward," she said formally. "Before we begin, I must say, you have my respect." "Few ever earn that," Elias nodded. "Then let's make this one worth remembering." The referee drone descended between them. "Semi-final match, begin!" Vylara struck first, as always. But this time her attacks were not wild. They were precise, measured, controlled. Elias met her strikes head-on, using his reinforced baton to deflect them. The sound of metal against energy echoed like thunder. Each movement felt heavier now. Vylara's armor had been upgraded, her speed increased. Elias had to rely on every ounce of focus to keep up. His muscles screamed, his breath came hard, but his mind stayed sharp. He watched her eyes, her rhythm, her pattern. He began to see small details, the faint shift of her shoulders before she moved, the microsecond pause before each strike. He was learning again. "You're faster," he said between breaths. Vylara smiled faintly. "And you're still standing." The battle raged on. Dust rose from the ground, forming clouds around them. Every clash sent shockwaves through the sand. The audience could barely see who was winning. Only flashes of light and bursts of energy filled their view. Finally, Vylara landed a strong hit. Her spear caught Elias across the chest, sending him crashing backward into the wall. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air. The crowd went silent. Vylara lowered her spear. "Stay down, human. You have proven enough." Elias pushed himself up slowly, his hand pressed against the dirt. "You don't understand," he said through clenched teeth. "Humans don't stop fighting, even when we should." She watched him rise again, blood on his lip, pain in every step, but his eyes still burned with determination. Something inside Vylara changed. She remembered her first battles as a young warrior, how she once fought with passion before pride took over. She saw in Elias the fire she had lost long ago. For the first time in her long life, the great Vylara felt inspired. The fight resumed. Elias charged forward using speed instead of defense. He ducked under her spear, struck her leg, and rolled aside before the counterattack came. His movements were slower now, but smarter. He wasn't fighting like a soldier anymore, he was fighting like a survivor. Vylara found herself smiling as their weapons clashed again and again. "You fight with heart," she said. "That's all I've got left," Elias replied. The crowd roared as they traded blow after blow. No one could look away. This was more than a fight. It was a story unfolding before their eyes. After what felt like hours, both fighters collapsed to one knee, breathing heavily. The arena floor was scorched, and neither could lift their weapon easily anymore. Vylara looked at him, exhaustion and admiration in her eyes. "You are not like the others," Elias gave a tired laugh. "I get that a lot." "You have no energy left," she said softly. "Why do you still rise?" He looked up at her, his voice steady though weak. "Because if I stop now, humanity loses, and I promised my people I'd show them we belong here." Vylara stared at him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. Then slowly she smiled. Not her usual proud grin, but a true, honest smile. "Then stand, human. Let us finish this properly." Elias forced himself to his feet. His body trembled, but his will was unbroken. Vylara raised her spear one final time, and Elias lifted his broken baton. They charged. The impact shook the ground. The two figures locked in a final clash of strength and spirit. Sparks exploded around them, blinding the crowd. When the dust cleared, both fighters were on their knees, their weapons shattered. The referee drone hovered above them, scanning. Result: draw. The entire arena erupted in applause. The sound was like a storm. Cheers, chants, and cries from every corner of the galaxy. Vylara and Elias sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached out her hand to him. "You have earned your place among the stars, human." Elias grasped her hand firmly, his voice calm. "And you've shown me what strength truly means." Later that night, Vylara visited the human's recovery room. Elias was awake, staring at the ceiling. She stood silently for a moment before speaking. "Your spirit, it changed something today," she said. "Not just in me, but in everyone who watched. The galaxy saw what humans are capable of." Elias smiled weakly. "Maybe they'll stop calling us weak now." Vylara shook her head. They will call you dangerous instead, and I think that's even better." They both laughed softly. Outside the window, fireworks lit up the night sky. Across dozens of worlds, people, human and alien alike, celebrated the draw as if it were a shared victory. For the first time, humanity had not only fought but stood equal beside the galaxy's greatest champion. As Elias drifted to sleep, he remembered his home, blue oceans, green forests, and a small planet far from this world. He whispered softly to himself, "Earth, we made them see us." The day of the finals dawned bright and clear over Xylaris Prime, though the air was thick with anticipation. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes were tuned to the arena's live transmissions. Every species, from the smallest insectoid traders to massive starship fleets, was watching. For weeks, the story of the human, Captain Elias Ward, had spread like fire. He had faced General Vylara, the undefeated champion, and survived twice. Today, it was more than a tournament. It was a test of courage, strategy, and the human spirit itself. In the arena's training chamber, Elias practiced quietly. His body ached from previous matches, but his determination was stronger than ever. Each movement was precise, calculated. He wasn't trying to overpower Vylara. He was learning from her every strike, every pause, every reaction. Lyra, the alien medic, watched him carefully. "You should rest, Captain. You've never faced anything like this before." Elias shook his head. "Rest won't win this match. I have to understand her moves, her patterns, and more than that, I have to prove that humans can rise to the impossible." Lyra nodded, worry shadowing her eyes. "Very well. But remember, you're not just fighting for yourself anymore." He smiled faintly. "I know." Meanwhile, Vylara prepared herself in the champion's chamber. Unlike before, there was no arrogance in her eyes, only focus. Her armor glowed red with energy, pulsing with the hum of her spear. She had fought countless opponents, but Elias was different. He adapts. He learns, he never stops, she said aloud, almost to herself. This is no ordinary human. Her lieutenant approached cautiously. "Do you respect him, General?" Vylara's crimson eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in contemplation. "Respect, perhaps, but respect does not mean mercy. Today I will push him to his limits, and see if the human spirit is truly as strong as he claims." The arena gates opened, and the crowd erupted into cheers so loud, the walls seemed to shake. Holoscreens across the galaxy displayed the two figures stepping into the center of the arena. Vylara moved first, her spear cutting through the sunlight. Elias raised his baton, anticipation shining in his eyes. Both had endured, both had adapted, and now the final battle would begin. "May the strongest prevail," the referee drone announced. "Begin." Vylara struck with unmatched speed, a blur of red and blue. Elias dodged, rolled, and countered, but the blows were heavier than ever. Each strike carried the weight of the champion's full power. Sparks flew as spear met baton, and the shockwave sent sand and dust spinning into the air. The audience gasped. Even veterans who had watched for decades whispered in disbelief. This was not merely combat. It was a storm, a whirlwind of skill, willpower, and endurance. Elias ducked under one strike, then rose to deliver a sweeping counter. Vylara leapt back with incredible agility, landing with barely a scratch. He pressed forward again, targeting her armor's joints and weak points, not to defeat her outright, but to test, learn, and anticipate. Vylara smiled faintly, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Clever human. You learn too fast and you fight too hard," Elias replied, breathless but focused. Minutes passed like hours. The sun rose higher, casting golden light across the arena. Both warriors were battered and bruised, their movement slower but their determination unbroken. Neither would yield. Vylara struck suddenly, her spear slicing through the air with a terrifying arc. Elias blocked with his baton, but the force threw him to the ground. Sand exploded around him and the audience held its collective breath. Yet Elias didn't stay down. He pushed himself upright, chest heaving, eyes fixed on her. "I'm not done," he said firmly. "And neither are you." Vylara paused, observing him with new understanding. "No one has ever stood up like this," she murmured. No one. The final stage of their battle became a dance. Vylara's attacks were relentless, yet each strike seemed to meet a human counter, a clever dodge or a precise block. Elias moved like water, flowing around her might, learning, adapting, surviving. At one point, Vylara leapt into the air, preparing a strike meant to end the match. Elias rolled aside, barely avoiding the spear, and noticed her momentary imbalance. Using that instant, he grabbed a small piece of her energy field and reflected it against her armor. A crack of light ran across her chest plate. Vylara froze mid-motion. The crowd gasped, some rising to their feet. Even seasoned veterans were stunned. No one had ever cracked her armor before. You adapt in every moment, she said, amazement in her voice. I told you, Elias panted. Humans don't stop fighting, even when it seems impossible. The duel escalated. Every strike shook the arena, sand and energy spraying in all directions. Elias was pushed to the limits of his endurance, yet his mind stayed sharp. Vylara realized that this battle was not about brute strength anymore. It was about spirit, resilience, and cleverness. The final moment came suddenly. Vylara swung her spear in a powerful arc, faster than anything before. Elias saw a tiny opening in her stance, a shift so small most eyes would miss it. Using his last ounce of strength, he sidestepped, grabbed her spear arm, and twisted it gently, redirecting the weapon. The momentum threw Vylara off balance. She stumbled to one knee. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The arena erupted in shock and awe. The undefeated champion had been unbalanced by a human. Elias, trembling but steady, did not strike. Instead, he stepped back and offered his hand. It's not about defeating you, he said. It's about showing what's possible. Vylara looked at him, chest heaving, eyes wide. For the first time, she felt true admiration for an opponent. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Her grip was strong, unyielding, yet respectful. You are remarkable, she whispered. I have fought titans, warlords, and monsters, but none have fought with the spirit I see in you. Elias smiled faintly. And you fight with honor, Vylara. That's why I wanted to face you. The referee drone hovered above them, scanning the battlefield. Result: a draw. Both combatants remained standing. The crowd went wild. Cheers echoed through the arena, spreading across worlds.
Aliens and humans alike celebrated not just the outcome, but the courage, the determination,
and the human spirit that had risen alongside the galaxy's greatest champion. Later, in the quiet of the arena, Vylara and Elias sat side by side, cleaning their armor and equipment. Both were battered and exhausted, but there was a new bond between them, a connection forged through respect and shared struggle. You are different, Vylara said finally. You remind me that strength is not only in the arm or weapon, but in the will. Elias nodded. That's all humans have. We might not be the fastest or the strongest, but we never give up. She smiled, a small but genuine smile. Perhaps I underestimated your kind. Perhaps, Elias replied, you just didn't know us yet. Outside, the twin suns set, casting the arena in golden light. Across the galaxy, viewers from every world were left in awe. Stories would be told of this day for generations. Tales of a small human who faced the unbeatable champion and stood tall. Tales of courage, strategy, and the unstoppable human spirit. And for Vylara, the battle had changed her. She realized that victory was not about crushing every opponent, but about understanding the power of those who fight with heart. Elias looked out at the horizon, exhausted but proud. He thought of Earth, his home, and the people who had never believed they could be recognized in the galaxy. We made them see us, he whispered. Vylara looked at him, standing tall beside her. Yes, she said quietly, and perhaps the universe will never forget it. The arena lights dimmed. The crowd dispersed slowly, still talking about the match. But in the hearts of millions, one truth had been etched forever. Humanity, small and overlooked, had the courage and spirit to challenge the greatest of the galaxy and to survive. The day after the final battle, Xylaris Prime was alive with energy. Markets, streets, and holoscreens across the city displayed endless replays of the duel between Captain Elias Ward and General Vylara. The story of the human who had stood against the galaxy's undefeated champion spread like wildfire across star systems. In the arena's medical wing, Elias sat quietly, resting. His body ached from the matches, his uniform torn and scorched. Yet his eyes shone with calm determination. Lyra, the medic, scanned his vitals. You've done more than anyone imagined, Captain. The galaxy will remember today forever. Elias smiled faintly. I didn't do this alone. Everyone believed in what humans could do. I just showed them. Lyra's eyes widened. Belief. That is stronger than any weapon. Even Vylara admitted it. Elias nodded. Exactly. Humans survive because we hope, because we refuse to quit, and because we adapt. That's our true strength. Far above in her quarters, Valara stood in front of a large viewing screen showing the crowds cheering for Elias. She touched the image of him lightly, as if acknowledging the human's courage. She turned to her lieutenant, voice quiet but firm. This human, he is unlike anyone I have faced. He did not defeat me, yet he changed the way I see strength. Today he has shown the galaxy that humans are capable of greatness. Her lieutenant bowed. Shall we report this to the Galactic Council? Valara nodded. Yes, but let it be known that this was not just a victory for one human. It was a victory for the idea that determination can stand alongside power. Across the arena, Elias prepared to leave. He was invited to speak before the Galactic Council, an honor reserved for heroes. He walked slowly, his body sore but his spirit strong. The council members, representatives from dozens of worlds, looked at him with newfound respect. The council chair, a tall, regal alien named Lord Zir, rose. Captain Elias Ward, he said, voice echoing in the chamber. You have faced the unbeatable champion of Xylaris Prime and survived. You have shown not only skill but courage, intelligence, and honor. You have reminded us all that no world is too small, no species too young to make a mark on the galaxy. Elias nodded. I represent Earth, yes, but this is not about one planet. It is about proving that any being with determination and heart can rise no matter the odds. Whispers ran through the council chamber. Many had underestimated humans. Now they were forced to reconsider everything. Valara, standing beside the council chamber, watched Elias speak. She felt a sense of pride, not for herself but for the human who had challenged everything she believed about strength. Do you think he will become a legend? She asked her lieutenant. He nodded. He already is. Stories will be told for generations about the human who faced the unbeatable champion and survived. The galaxy will not forget him, Valara smiled faintly, and neither will I. Back on Xylaris Prime, as the crowd celebrated, Elias walked through the arena one last time. Children waved small Earth flags. Merchants cheered. Aliens who had once doubted humanity now bowed in respect. Elias stopped at the edge of the arena, looking out over the vast city. He thought of Earth, the oceans, forests, and cities that were so far away, yet so full of life and resilience. He thought of every human who had struggled, survived, and fought against impossible odds. He whispered softly, almost to himself. We made them see us. We made them believe that we can stand tall no matter how small we seem. The crowd's cheers reached him and he smiled faintly, but he did not feel pride for himself. He felt pride for humanity, for every person who had faced the unknown and refused to give up, for every human who had stood in the shadow of greater powers and yet shone brightly. Valara approached him silently. She looked at him, her face serious yet kind. You fought not just with skill but with heart, she said. I underestimated your people. I will not make that mistake again. Elias nodded. And I will continue to show the galaxy what humans are capable of. Not to challenge, but to inspire. She smiled faintly, a small gesture that carried weight across the arena. Perhaps one day your kind and mine will fight side by side. Elias considered her words. That would be a good day. Over the following weeks, the story of Elias Ward spread from system to system. Holo recordings of his battles against Valara were used in schools across multiple worlds. Children mimicked his dodges and stances, dreaming of courage, determination, and the ability to stand tall despite impossible odds. Even older beings who had spent centuries conquering and ruling found themselves inspired. Humans who had been overlooked for so long were now seen as beings of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Elias, however, remained humble. He returned to his ship quietly, thinking not of fame but of the next challenge. There were worlds to explore, threats to understand, and lessons to teach. But no matter where he went, he would carry with him the memory of Valara and the battles that had changed the galaxy's view of humanity. In time, Valara herself became an ally of Earth. The two warriors trained together, learning from one another. Valara taught the humans new combat strategies, while Elias taught her the value of adaptability, quick thinking, and the spirit that never gives up. Together, they became a symbol across the galaxy, a reminder that power is not measured only in strength, but in heart, courage, and the ability to inspire others. Stories of their battles were told for generations, Poets wrote about the human who stood against the undefeated champion. Scholars analyzed his tactics. Leaders across worlds spoke of the determination and ingenuity that humans could bring to the universe. Elias, years later, stood before a new generation of soldiers on Earth. He had returned home, but his lessons traveled across the stars. "Remember this," he told them, voice calm but firm. "Strength is not just in your muscles or your weapons or your armor. Strength is in your spirit. It's in your will to rise no matter how many times the universe tells you to fall. Humans are small in the galaxy, yes, but we are never small in courage. Never small in heart. Never small in spirit." The students listened, wide-eyed, inspired. For them, Elias Ward was not just a soldier. He was a legend, a symbol of what humanity could achieve, and proof that courage and determination could stand alongside the greatest forces in the galaxy. Back on Xylaris Prime, Vylara watched a transmission of Elias teaching Earth's youth. She smiled. She had once thought no being could challenge her, no matter their size or species. Yet here was a human, small in stature but enormous in heart, inspiring an entire generation to believe that anything was possible. The galaxy had changed, and Elias Ward had been the spark. She turned to her lieutenants. "It seems the universe has learned something new," she said. "Never underestimate a human." Elias looked out at the stars that night. The moons of Xylaris hung like silent watchers in the sky. His thoughts drifted to home, to Earth, to every challenge yet to come. The universe was vast, full of danger, mystery, and unknown worlds. But he knew one thing with certainty. Humanity had a place among the stars. A strong, determined, fearless place. And wherever the galaxy turned its eyes, the story of the human who stood against the unbeatable champion would inspire countless beings for generations to come. For in the end, it was not the size of the warrior, nor the strength of their weapon, that mattered. It was the spirit inside, and the human spirit, as Elias Ward had shown, could never be defeated.